Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the opportunity to speak with Steve Shebuski. He is the managing director. He really is the CPG and distribution industry lead with MCA Connect. Now, these folks work on WMS solutions and a whole host of different things for manufacturers and distributors. But, he's been around the WMS or the warehouse management systems or software game for about 25 years. And I look back, and that's about how long I've been around this as well. Maybe even a little bit longer, but not much. So we had an opportunity to kind of talk about the early days, throwing lasers and phasers out in the warehouse and really where that whole, industry segment or technology segment really kind of grew up and what he sees is the future. So I think those of you, who are just kind of still working around maybe on some basic warehouse management tools, and you're looking at what's the next big thing or where are we going with this to really give those warehouse managers the tools they need to be very efficient and very successful. I think you'll really enjoy this, but I enjoyed my conversation with Steve, and I hope you all do too. This episode is brought to you by my friends at Moblico. Your customers and employees spend 30% of their waking day on their mobile devices. From custom mobile apps to robust mobile messaging solutions, Moblico provides the most comprehensive end-to-end mobile communication and outbound marketing solution to the wholesale distribution industry. In a recent conversation with someone using their beacon technology, she described sending an instant request for a Google review after someone visited the showroom. Even better, what do you want to tell customers when they enter that showroom? This is the power of mobile communication. If you've been curious about how mobile technology can help your company or are looking to upgrade your current solution, check out what Moblico has to offer at www.moblicosolutions.com. That's MOBLICO solutions.com. And be sure to let them know you heard about them on the Distribution Talk podcast. Well, hey, Steve, welcome to Distribution Talk. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. So looking forward to it.
Right on, man. With Distribution Talk, we'd love to talk about your background and, where you came from and why you even look at distribution. What's the interest there? I mean, most people couldn't even spell it when they were in school. So how did you land here? So please take it away.
Yeah, well, thanks, Jason. Yeah, I mean, I don't have like a profound story, but I was a chemical engineer at Michigan State, and coming out of school in the 90s, I went to 3M. I did like an internship right before I got done with my senior year. They put me in a lab by myself testing films for billboards.
Oh,
and
okay. All right.
And I tested these things for like 2 months. They, came out of my closet with some data and they handed me another project. So at the same time, the .com boom was going on and all these folks were starting to build software, and did an interview with a company that was building a WMS system on the AS400.
Yeah.
And out of South Bend. And I was like, I think I'm going to do that instead. So just threw my degree out the window and jumped in and started cranking RPG code on a WMS system. So
nice.
That's kind of, how I got into it. And, it's obviously been 25 plus years since, but that was the start.
And that's early on in the WMS game.
Yeah.
I mean, that was really early on. I mean, especially if you're working on an AS400. I remember, first WMS system I worked with, it was pretty cutting edge. They were working on a Windows platform. That was pretty amazing stuff.
So this company in South Bend that we were with, we had a solution we wrote called Log Pro.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also wrote what we thought was one of the first platforms on Windows. We called it WM for Windows. Pronto. It was called a couple of different things.
All right.
And Manhattan ended up buying us. So the core of that Windows solution is kind of like part of Manhattan Active today. Right. And so, and Log Pro kind of went into the PKMS solution. So anyways, yeah.
Yeah, the company that I worked with, that we had, brought on, They were recommended as a partner. I was on the ERP Profit 21 at
Oh,
the
okay. There you
time.
go.
And
Yep.
yeah. And so this company was called Pathguide Technologies, and they were
Mm,
based out of Washington,
yeah.
Washington State. It was interesting because the old P21 system was based on the Progress database on that AS400.
Yeah.
And then you had the, this Windows based solution, and the two didn't like to talk to each other very well.
No.
It was a very rocky time. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, it was interesting. We used to, at the time I was doing more of the RPG side, and we used to make fun of how fast the Windows solution could go, and we do those compares. So those are good old days, and
Yeah.
that's where it got started. And then since then we kind of got the band back together, Jason. We after that happened, we kind of started another company, and at some point, we were doing some ERP solutions, doing WMS, and we were focused on JD Edwards and Lawson, and those things got gobbled up, and we kind of went all in on Microsoft. And then as we got into the Dynamics community, we were like, let's write another WMS, because it was a white space. So that's we wrote a WMS and TNS at Microsoft, ended up grabbing from us as well, and ended up putting it into their base solution and around the 2012 mark. So anyways, been through that a couple of times, but most of my times has been spent with our customers on cement floors. So you know how
for
that
sure.
goes. Yep.
I do. Oh, yeah. No, I spent a lot of my career on that, in that world. So tell me about, okay, all right, when you started to first, getting around as WMS solution, you ditched your degree and said, I like this better. What was attractive? I mean, what was interesting about it? Because, I mean, this was kind of the Wild West around, you're just starting to see barcoding solutions coming into play in these warehouses. I mean, a lot of us were on, we were pushing manual carts and paper and picking and that kind of stuff. So,
what I really love about it, and I love about it to this day, is that, just like in engineering, these are complex problems, right? You can't just go focus on one thing and optimize one thing, because it'll be to the detriment of other things if you don't really think about how you're applying, whether it's process change, technology change, whatever. So I think that, was probably the thing that I most liked about it, is every building, every order profile, every company, whatever it was, that has some uniqueness to it, where, and what you get into old buildings, and you got, new racking, old racking, capital investment limits. So the ability to bring creativity as well as experience to problems is probably what I like about this the most. And just really helping folks optimize what they're doing using, both process and technology tools. And so, that's probably the biggest thing that I liked from a distribution perspective.
Well, I think it's fascinating to take, these legacy businesses, and some of them have been doing business, a couple, 3 generations or more in some cases. And you're right, that you kind of get in these old buildings and very, these Frankenstein buildings, and you're trying to get, either an RF signal or, a Wi-Fi signal, places, and you're like, oh, I got myself a little problem here, and you got to kind of learn to string cable and do all those kind of fascinating things. But ultimately, I think there's a satisfaction in looking at a company like that has been operating in a certain way and saying, hey, look, I can add a little bit of logic to your chaos right now, and I can make your lives just a little bit better. I'm not going to, reinvent your company, but I'm going to make it just a little bit better for people working here.
100%. I mean, and my origin, working with distributors, wholesale distributors, probably, I mean, just you and I chatted, you coming up in your family business is family-owned distributors is sort of like a lot of my background is working with family-owned businesses. And so you get a lot of folks that have been doing things certain ways for a long time. And, these types of companies, distribution-orientated companies are customer-focused, right, to create their low margin. And so every drop you can find, and I think that's another thing I like, is just every drop you can find is to the bottom line. And, people appreciate that kind of work. And then obviously, being so customer centric and people centric, distributors, people and their customers are really, the most important things. And so I think I like that part about it too, is just being in that kind of environment. So.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that, It's interesting, when we see technology right now
Yeah.
playing out and, people talk about automation. There's a lot of automation going, but
Yeah.
I think sometimes in these legacy businesses, it's not the need for that automation. What we're really looking at is just, making it just a little bit easier each day for
Yeah.
these guys, just a little blocking and tackling and it's going well. And I mean, I'll tell you, I've run into so many companies. These are not startup companies, fly by the seat of your pants kind of companies, but these companies that are reticent to change and they look at these solutions like, well, is it going to fit my culture? Is it going to fit the people
Yeah.
that work here? And it's that people first mentality, technology second. And I think that's kind of an interesting dynamic when you try to be a technology company in this space.
I totally agree. And I think, especially in the US, automation is probably seen its hockey stick here as of late. But, for a long time with labor where it was, it's more about just how do we grow without adding, the linear amount of people that we have today? And how do we just, do more with less? And that's probably been the majority of my focus over the years. Certainly we've done all the, the various types of automation and help people study the order profiles and the SKU profiles, and is it going to give us the benefit? I think that's part of the fear too for a lot of distributors is just you get some of these solutions and they're very specific on, what kind of outcomes they can deliver, but your business changes, is it still going to help, still be effective for me in the future, so laying down miles of conveyor is not like something folks are trying to do anymore, right? They're trying to be more flexible in how their channels and where they deliver might go year to year based on all the things that are going on.
Again, you started getting involved with this, a long time ago. I mean, this is like, bleeding edge area. And I mean, I started in the late 90s as well, kind of playing around with these technologies and learning about them. What do you think has been the biggest, most significant change and difference over that, again, couple decade span? A lot of them are similar. I mean, let's face it, they're still handheld phaser, walking around, scanning barcodes. I mean, what are the big things that you've seen that have kind of made it more attractive and easier for people?
I think that's a couple of things. I would say number one is the quality of data for folks over the years. Folks have focused on it. And as you know, being in the WMS world, it makes all the difference in the world. And so I think just in general, there's, just the maturity of folks that I work with in that particular arena. And, having data platforms out there that make it easier to do analysis and find trends and things like those are tools we didn't have back in the day on the AS400 days, right? We were finding needles in haystacks, if you will, and trying to download things into Excel and pivot it every which way but Sunday to look at that stuff. And it was harder. So I think, just data in general has given us a ton of advantage. I think, the way that folks approach projects, more incremental in nature, and some of the platforms allowing that, helps a ton. So you can focus on certain things, and incrementally make gains. So I think, those types of things are probably the two biggest. When you think about WMS, have the application capabilities changed significantly since the 90s? Probably, I mean, maybe a little bit in terms of how they communicate to the outside world and get signals and on all those things. But like, how you run the four walls is, there hasn't been like massive innovations, other than the addition of some of the more of the automated environments of WCS and ES and all that kind of stuff. But just core WMS and the brains, I mean, it's been, a lot of the same stuff. It's just, applying the right process and technology to the right scenarios. It's become more obvious, what we need to do in a lot of these buildings, at least in my experience.
Have you found that it is now over the years, become so much more accessible to smaller companies? I mean, this is, when I started doing this again, late 90s, opening bid was 100,000, to get in the game. And, if you had a moderately sized organization, maybe 10 locations, you were into this thing $500,000.
Yep.
No question about it. But today that's not the case.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's, I have a personal focus on the Microsoft platform, but like, one of the things that I really like about that, the platform is, even 7 years ago, if I went into a distributor and I talked about a SaaS cloud solution, they would say, I can't go down. There's no possible way I'm interested in that.
Right.
And, I think the trust has, just kind of got it to a place where it's not really a thing anymore. And so having a platform where we don't have to invest in upgrades and just new capabilities by the providers are just given to us, that are just available as they come out. And having your data platform connected to your application platform, like that unlocks so many things. It allows, I just think about all the upgrades that we've done over our lifetime and like to not have to schedule those things and use that time and effort to improvement. I mean, those are the types of things that I think have really moved the needle. And you think about just going into your Microsoft Office and turning on a new app, being able to do the same for an application and not really think about, all the IT folks that we got to get involved. Like we can spin these things up. They have UIs that were intuitive. We can work with a partner to turn these things on. It's a game changer and it allows us to enter lots of different markets that, to your point, we weren't able to enter before.
Absolutely. This episode of Distribution Talk is sponsored by NSQL Distribution Software. NSQL is a fully functional distribution-based software package. I only recommend software packages that were purpose-built to serve distribution. And these folks do it very well at a price point many smaller distributors can afford. Economy doesn't mean compromise. This company is on the cutting edge of distribution-friendly applications like VMI on mobile devices, mobile signature capture, mobile CRM, warehouse management software, and e-commerce development. If you're ready to step up to a fully loaded, scalable distribution package at an affordable price, look no further than NSQL Distribution Software at www.nsql.com. That's INXSQL.com. I think we're reaching that point. I used to say, again, I've been teaching now for a long time and again, been involved around this stuff for a long time, but I used to say, it's not an if thing, it's a when thing with WMS, and I used to talk about this quite a bit. I'm kind of finding that now, are we at the point where it's a, you got to have it thing? It's not even a win thing. Now it's like, this should be table stakes at this point. I mean, I'm starting to believe that and maybe I'm a little premature on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. A lot of times I just go visit customers and walk floors with folks. And I went and visited a customer last week and they are actually a manufacturer, but on the distribution side, they, have grown over the last 5 years and all of a sudden not just going to, distributors for their products, but they're going to, B2B shops and opened up marketplaces and doing their website. So the complexity has grown tremendously. And, you kind of walk the floor at these folks and it's like, man, your manufacturing process is dialed in, in order for you to like sustain this growth that you have to invest here, right? You have to improve this and make it so that you move the needle in terms of getting new customers and new channels that, you're able to support the ability to pick, pack, and ship those efficiently, regardless of size of order profile and the channel that you're trying to optimize. So totally agree. I think, with a lot of even manufacturers now trying to hit more channels and distributors, it's a have to have. And the and to it is really, it needs to be connected into your larger ecosystem. Like, what I've been seeing lately is, our upstream capabilities in order management impact how we do things in WMS. When I'm planning my outbound transportation, how I run my WMS could be largely driven by my transportation plan, or if I have my own trucks, how I'm loading trucks. So you think about the optimization between when the point of taking an order to delivery and all those things working together that obviously are not, potentially one application, making sure that you have high connectivity and you have a good understanding of all those things impact each other is critical. And as you mentioned before, as more automation comes in, that's just another thing that we have to make sure we keep in mind. So yeah, it's a have to have, to compete in my opinion.
I would agree. I mean, I'm kind of at that point, that I've seen a lot of consolidation with smaller
Yeah.
distributors, privately held, family distributors,
Yep.
and they, as you said, gobbling up. There's a lot of gobbling up, and that's cyclical. That is the life cycle of these businesses. But I think that if the small want to compete with the big, they're going to have to invest in technologies that make that warehouse environment, that back end, maybe even the last mile, all of that is going to have to be technology driven.
That's
And
right.
so if you're still trying to go paper based, you're going to miss things and you're going to lose things. And you just can't rely on the tribal knowledge that we had before, to be
Yeah.
able to pull orders effectively and get them staged. I mean, that was when I was, a teenager doing this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
That's what we relied on. And that's okay because the speed of that business was not as great. The emotions were, but, just, the speed requirement was not as great. Today, the speed requirement is huge.
It's huge. And, for a lot of these family businesses, when you're in the trees, sometimes you just don't see some of this stuff. Like I went and visited a parts distributor, small family business, and they had a VLM and different things. But when I went there, they had, a counter or two where folks were coming up trying to get parts to work on their machines or whatever it was. And as they were picking orders, it was, a stack of papers. And the first thing I saw when I stood there was a human being going out, picking an order, the paper, put it in the slot, grabbing the next piece of paper. And I was like, guys, just as a starting place here, let's have him take 5 of these things in his hands.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
And
No, no, no.
let's take a piece of wood, put it on the pallet jack here, and let's, at least do that. And by the way, some of the things that we can light up for you pretty quickly here is just basic part picking. And, there's some general like, well, how much time is that going to save me? I'm like, well, it just took him 90 seconds to walk back here. So I don't know, multiply it out times 100 orders or whatever he's doing. Just as an example, I think it's like there's just, even some of the stuff that we, like you said, we did back in the 90s, there's still opportunities in some of these, even though the volume is smaller, the technology is now accessible and they can do some of these basic things and make major improvements to efficiencies and order accuracies and all that kind of good stuff.
I'm glad you mentioned the whole, can you take 5 pieces of paper out there? I mean, I'll tell you, and I've been teaching branch management now for several years. And I talk a lot about asking, about layout and warehouse layout, things like that. But, it shocks me still how many distributors still believe that you got to go one order at a time through the pick path. And I'm like, guys, even a dummy like me used to be able to put 4 orders on a gray Rubbermaid cart, and be able to walk through. And I think there's your efficiency right there. And to do, 5 to, I mean, I've seen people do 10, in one pass, just with the right equipment and the right technology next to them.
That's right.
Now I've got one person replicating themselves over and over, and being able to have, it's like 10 people walking through that place in one pass. I mean, it's shocking. I mean, that's really fascinating. At least that's fascinating to me. Maybe not to some, but that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, and like something I've been dabbling, obviously we're in this AI era.
Yeah.
And
sure.
I'm like, what I tried to think about, because it can become overwhelming at this point with all the things that you're seeing. But, one day we were sitting there just trying to think about, well, ultimately, like what value can I provide a warehouse manager here? And I thought about things. It's like, well, you know what? Even in this day and age, my warehouse managers are going into Power BI and they're looking at last week's volume, what's coming up, they're slotting positions, they're pivoting that, looking at, how much effort it'd be to do the moves. And they're going through a series of gyrations to kind of figure out what makes the most sense for them to invest in. And so as I thought about that, like what a great opportunity for like an agent in AI to say, these are all tasks that I can explain how to do to technology, right? We can teach it because it's just math and it's just steps, right? And then, so how do I do this for someone where they can ask for it? We can present it, whether it's like basic stuff like, hey, slotting opportunities. You've got
Yeah.
the D mover in one of your A spots right now. And, it's the biggest bang for your buck is to replace these two items this week based on what's going on. Or, where space is running out, got some honeycombing going on in your racks. Like, what's the biggest bang for your buck with the shortest travel time to free up some spots? Like, again, human beings can get that information a lot faster these days with the tools as we were talking about.
Yeah.
But like, hey, how do we even take that to the next level where they're not doing that work? The solutions are just telling them and constantly looking at that stuff and making recommendations, and they're selecting the things that they want to do. So those are the kind of cool stuff we're working on like, hey, how do we start to use this in a small but like very specific way that we think people are doing right now that they can latch onto and just start using the tools?
Well, I think you just kind of opened up a really interesting thought there is, I'm an AI junkie. I love this stuff. And I was doing a quick little presentation when I was in Minneapolis this last week. Is it Minneapolis? Yeah, I think it was Minneapolis last week. Sometimes I forget. But yeah, talking about the different applications. And I think you just brought up an interesting, where do I put stuff? If I'm laying out a facility for the maximum efficiency and not married to the old, I got to put all these suppliers in the same place in catalog order. If I can get away from that mindset and let AI, for example, take a look at that problem for me, I think our minds would be blown. I think it's just fascinating. And then you talked about, could you explain, the agents and agentics and that whole, because this is pretty new to the AI world. So
yeah, I think, like, I don't know. I'm not like an expert by any means yet, but
I don't think any of us are, man. I think it's just so new. We're like all trying to figure it out.
We've got some data folks at MCA Connect where I'm at that are really like scientists that are, that are doing really amazing things. And the problems they're working on are like forecasting and machine learning. And so they're like training models to do some really amazing stuff. And I think so that's like on this end of the spectrum. And then on the other end of the spectrum, it's like, how does Steve Shebuski use, basic Copilot to help him summarize some emails, right? And then there's some of these places in the middle where it's like, all right, well, large language models and agents and things. And when I think about the agents, especially in the warehouse, it becomes interesting because, the way that I've been thinking about those mostly for the moment is like not necessarily, the demand planning, machine learning, but just automating tasks that we can easily explain to the agents about how they need to be done, but do them, in a continuous way and in a prompted way, if I want to just ask it stuff or do my walkarounds with we call it our warehouse advisor, right? That we're talking to. Like those are some really interesting things that, new ways to think about the tools, right? So,
yeah, I think just even simple. I'm just going to go so basic, but a simple task like, what should I replenish today? Replenishing from, overstock bin to primary bin. What should I be doing today? And let that agent, talk us. Okay, all right, these are the things that we need to do. And yes, could you create a report? Yeah, you could have. But why not just have a more intuitive dialogue with this, agent saying, all right, here's what physically has to be done today, and this is going to help you out in the future.
Yeah. And the future of WMS in general, like if, you just take a moment and just start thinking about things, like that's the scary part of how fast this could change in terms of, at the end of the day, what a WMS is doing is helping manage all the human beings that are working out there and scanning. As that becomes more automated, as the AI can become more sort of informed about the data, will we really need to run waves and things of that nature? Or are we just figuring out the next optimal thing to do, right? This, I see this, and that's kind of like, it's going to take a minute for us to get to where we trust all these things to that end. But I do believe, like, especially in the warehouse, it becomes one of the places we could do the most interesting work with that, because everything that we do is precise. It is it is explainable by business rules. We can sit there and tell things, what we would prefer to do and why. You know what I mean? And learn those types of trends. I like to pick things that are heavy. They're from the ground. My fast movers should be, where my waste is in these things.
Totally. You're
These
preaching
are
to the choir,
things
man.
that everything the AI can learn, right? And then it becomes less about trying to set up a million locating rules in your WMS and things. And it's more about just what are my objectives and the system really learning from those. So I don't know. I think the evolution of how these things are set up and maintained will become very interesting here in the next 10 years.
Oh, it's fascinating. I mean, I love that, kind of the ergonomic layout, and if you can share that with, and train an AI to kind of start looking for those types of things, all of a sudden, wow, you're going to be, all right, well, let's move some stuff around here and here. This is being picked more frequently. Let's get it in the strike zone, all those things. And now you've got a safer environment.
Maybe at first, all it's doing is updating the configuration for you, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then as opposed to having people trained on how to do those things, and maybe all it's doing at first is translating that to however that WMS does it and making those changes at the right times for you. I don't know. So those are things
I think there's some fascinating ideas, I'm thinking about all of a sudden pinch points, stuff where, it's like, oh, okay, this is continually becoming a bottleneck.
Yeah.
How do we, and really, I mean, the tools available to that warehouse manager today to all of a sudden free up those problem areas. I mean, it's pretty fascinating.
That's right.
It's pretty exciting stuff. So yeah, I guess just to warehouse geeks though. I mean, that's just the kind of way.
I could do this all day. It's like,
I know. I know the feeling, man. You're like, all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, yeah, we can really open it up. So tell me a little bit about your company as we kind of wrap up here. Just, share a little bit about what you all do, how people can get a hold of you, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah. I lead our CPG and distribution industry for MCA Connect. We are a systems integrator, 100% focused on Microsoft technologies and helping manufacturers, CPG companies, and wholesale distributors leverage technology to help improve their operations. So whether it's manufacturing systems, distribution systems, data and analytics platforms, all of the above. We're bringing those technologies, and then, we're really focused on industry. So we have strategy and industry experts that really focus on the people and the process, and then try to bring the right technology to help make improvements in all of the above industry segments that we focus on. So that's us. And, we've been doing this for 25 years in the Microsoft space, and look forward to continuing to do it. And I have a new role here, but mostly just been 100% focused on growing distribution and helping CPG companies as well, just continue to improve their fulfillment operations.
Fantastic, Steve. Well, hey, thank you so much. And we're going to, put links into not only your company, but to you as well, in the show notes. But
thank you.
Yeah. Hey, man, thanks for taking a little time to speak with me about this stuff, kind of taking me back and, getting to chat about some different challenges I haven't looked at for a little bit. So again, thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Jason, thanks for having me. Great conversation. And I look forward to seeing this out there. And I'll definitely keep in touch with you and the show. So appreciate the time today.
You bet. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Impostor Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.